As a Delphi Service Centre technician, I have the backing of over 100 years of OE expertise, which comes down to this. I can control a vehicle at the touch of a screen. I can diagnose head-scratching faults in a matter of seconds. I can even program specific control units. And all of this at the independent garage level. What does this mean for me and my business? It means an increase in traffic through the garage each and every day. It means the work is done right, first time, on time, and most importantly, the work stays here rather than being outsourced. Now I'm going to show you how Delphi's training and diagnostic tools can help you retain and increase business on current and future complex automotive technologies. So now the vehicle's up on the lift, the first thing to do is buzz the wheels off. Now that the wheel is off, I can actually see that it's got an electronic caliper. I can see that by the motor plug on the back of the caliper. This means I'm going to have to electronically wind back the pistons in order to change the pads. The reason for this is the piston actually positions the pads to make sure they're clamping the disc. If I was to wind this back manually, it would damage the motor inside the caliper, and I'd have to put a whole new caliper on the vehicle. So this job cannot be done manually, it needs to be done with a diagnostic tool. There's two parts to the diagnostic tool. There's the PC and there's the VCI. VCI stands for Vehicle Communication Interface. This has to be connected to the vehicle. The VCI has three lights on it. The red one will indicate when it's connected into the data link connector inside the vehicle. Next thing is using the diagnostics. First thing I'm going to do is access the vehicle. I have to go through the menu, selected Audi, A6 2005 onwards, and I've checked the VIN number and I see digit 10 of the VIN number is number 8, which means it's a 2008 vehicle. I've gone into the braking system and selected parking brake. Everything else is okay, so I can try and gain diagnostics with the vehicle. What it's asking me to do is turn the ignition on before I start my test. So now my ignition's on, you can see we still have just a red light on the VCI. When I gain communications, we'll know we've got communications because we'll have two green lights coming up. So we have communications now. What I'm now going to do is electronically wind back the pistons before service. So to do that, I have to go into the adjustment function. From the drop-down menu, I'm going to reset pistons before service. What the diagnostic tool does is it gives me instructions how to do this. I have the ability to print this off. So if I was setting up the job for the technician, they'd be able to read this in with the job card. When I press OK, it will advise me that the engine needs to be off, but the ignition needs to be on. So if I press OK, what it's going to do is wind back the piston so I can remove the caliper. So what I've observed is that the stepper motors had some current going through them as they were winding back, and they've reset to position 14. That way I know that they've wound back to their original position, so I can now remove the caliper. I've just got to take off the caliper bolts. Now I've got the caliper bolts off, the caliper should lift off easily. If I hadn't have wound back the pistons, there's no way I would be able to lift off the caliper now. So if I just pull the caliper towards me, it just lifts off. I've got two new brake pads to put on. What I've also done is fitted new shim kits and fitting new bolts also to the caliper. The pads should fit easily. If I have to force them in, then there's an issue. They're the wrong pads or else I haven't cleaned it up correctly. Now I've completed the job of replacing the brake pads. What I need to do is wind the pistons forwards so that they clamp onto the brake pads. It's very, very important I do this resetting, otherwise the handbrake won't be applied properly. The reason for this is a stepper motor knows exactly where to clamp the pads, and I need to reset that inside the car's ECU. From the menu I now select Move Pistons Forwards After Service. If I hit OK, again it will give me the help menu and it'll ask me to wind the pistons forward again. I can see the current going through the pistons, through the stepper motors to make sure they're regaining their original position, which, as we can see, is step number 2. And finally, once this operation is complete, I just need to go through the basic setting of brake systems. This is like resetting the adaptive values after the job. What it will now do is wind them backwards and forwards 3 times to identify the exact position that we need to be in. I know the job's complete because the stepper motor have both gone back to 0 steps. Now just a quick check to make sure that there's no fault codes in the system for the next technician who may work on this vehicle. There's no good having faults in there which are not current, because that could lead a technician to the wrong fault. There are no fault codes in the vehicle, so now I can complete. I now need to put the wheel back on and then check the handbrake works. I need to make sure the handbrake works backwards and forwards to make sure there's no faults left in the system.